We are back on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network for another episode of Back to the Dugout, a Friday episode, this time to take us into the weekend. We had a bit of technical difficulties yesterday. Some rolling thunderstorms or something coming through South Florida just knocked my internet out for a little bit yesterday and had to pivot towards doing the show at this time today. But at least we're getting out a second show this week. I get to take you guys into the weekend very nicely. And we just at least get to get a second hour Back to the Dugout in. So it's very nice for me. Welcome back, everybody. As I already mentioned, this Back to the Dugout show here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network every Monday and Thursday, where I round up the MLB news for the week, as well as some NCAA baseball stuff, if that's the case. But we've been focusing mainly MLB here. But my name's Toby Schulman. As always, I'm here to take you guys through the whole hour here on Back to the Dugout. We got a great full hour for you guys today. First off, going to talk about the AL Wildcard race, as I see it's really heating up right now. Just want to kind of outline what the schedules look like for the competitors going forward, and what we could see in terms of, who could fall out of the standings, who could get the wild card, who's out. It's going to be a whirlwind of stuff and info coming at you for the wild card, but it's a lot of fun to talk about, so I'm excited to get into that. Moving forward, we're going to talk about some NL rookies that have really impressed this year. I know, because of Paul Skenes, it's been very hard to keep an eye on a lot of these rookies that are coming through the National League, but this is a very impressive rookie class. I've got a handful of guys not named Paul Skenes that I want to highlight, and then afterwards we are going to get into the first update of the 2023 MLB Draft class, the first round in particular. We're going to see where all those guys are at now, because if you've been keeping track of baseball, there are a lot of those guys starting to come up and make an impact at the big league level. So I'm really excited to see what we got going for the show today. And then if I have time at the end, I've got, I think, 4 to 6 picks here. I usually don't do 6 picks on the show, but I'm going to give you guys 4 at the end if I have time here, and then 2 bonus college football plays. Since it is week 1, I do want to get in the spirits of football and give you guys a couple picks that I like. But this is a baseball show, so we're not going to go too deep into that. But let's just get right into the AL wildcard stuff. I personally have been just enjoying watching the AL Central so much, and that's, I think, where I want to start out here. Now, what's funny about the AL Central is that it was in a completely different place yesterday than what it would have been if I, did the show yesterday. So the Royals were in a spot earlier this week where they could have had sole lead over the division, and they now find themselves 1.5 games back again of the Cleveland Guardians for that first place spot in the Central. I mean, it's been a tough go at it for the Royals in terms of trying to get that first spot, but they really look good. They've been playing some really good baseball lately, and then at times they just don't step up. There's games where they just kind of leave it and drop a dud, and it's just not a great outing on the mound. The offense looks like a Royals team from the past few years, but I think more of what we're going to see out of this Royals team is that new young core looking hungry for wins, and that's what we're going to see ultimately for the rest of the season out of them. Because we're getting into September here. These games mean a lot, and when you're 1.5 games back of the lead and you're only a couple games up on the wild card, every game means a lot, and that's why I consistently go back to the Royals every time that I post a betting article or something. You'll more than likely see me tailing the Royals because they are a very gritty team right now that knows how important each game is to their resume. So I thought about that. I was like, what is next for this Royals team? What's the potential of them winning the division, and what's also the potential of them not making the playoffs entirely? Because that's kind of the road that we're in the middle of with the Kansas City Royals here. So I took a look at their schedules. I have the schedules pulled up here, and I'm going to get them on a separate screen for you guys. But this is Kansas City's schedule, as you guys could see here to the right of my camera here. They're playing the Houston Astros currently. That's obviously a tough series in its own. It's not an easy schedule if you look at this. It really isn't. They have some really, really tough competition for the rest of this season. Obviously, Houston starts out on a loss yesterday, 6-3. So that's not a good start. But then you look even past that. They need to win these next remaining games with the Houston Astros, because if they don't, then they could bury themselves with the 2 series following that. They could get themselves back in the division on the other end if they win this series against Houston, and then they could play Cleveland and Minnesota and say take 4 of 6 and then be in a really good spot in the standings, in the wild card standings. I mean, they could be winning the division by the end of that stretch. So by September 8th, I mean, depending on how this Astros series goes, we could really see this Royals team start to possibly either lead this division or be completely out of this by early September, which, they're not going to be completely out of it by early September, but we're going to be able to tell a lot of things about them. And if, you could see closely here, you'd see their starts against these important teams. I mean, this Cleveland series is going to be Waka, Singer, and then Lugo. Those are must-have quality starts for those guys. And then you've got Reagan's coming in against the Twins, and then you have Waka at the end of that series. So these are extremely attainable games that they could get. And the Royals just need to go out and they need to put together some good baseball at this stretch. And it's gonna be tough. I mean, looking past the September 8th, and then you've got the Yankees, who are gonna give you a really tough series. I mean, I'm pretty sure they swept the Royals the last time they played them this season, and then that started like the whole really bad struggle for the Yankees. Following that, they do have a very attackable, very gettable series in the Pittsburgh Pirates, but then they could face a guy like Paul Skenes or face a guy like Jared Jones, or who knows if Bubba Chandler will be up by then, and then you have to go up against another really tough pitcher. It's not going to be easy for this Royals team. And then you see they've got a division series against the Tigers, who have been playing a lot better lately, and they might give them a tough time as well. And then you host San Francisco, which could be good unless you're facing a guy like Blake Snell or a guy like Hayden Birdsong gets it together. Or, if they have to face Robbie Ray, he may even put together a decent start. So it's all up in the air for the Royals. They control a lot of their own destiny, obviously, but they're going to have to play a lot of tough teams. And the only thing I can say about this Royals team is that if they come out of this stretch of September games and have a really solid record there, are not winning the division, but they have a really solid cushion in the wild card, I think they're going to be a very prepped team for this postseason. They have a lot of good competition that they're playing, a lot of inter-division games that they're going to have to win. It's going to really just grade this team into something really special, I think, for the postseason, and it's going to really get them prepped, I think, for the tough comp in the postseason. But that was really all I got from the Royals. Obviously, the series against Washington could be very attainable. The Pittsburgh and Detroit series, you could say those are must 2 out of 3 wins. Those are must sweeps. I mean, you could say a lot of different things about the way that the rest of the Kansas City schedule is going to go. But I think if you say it to me that that's an easy schedule, or that's a favorable schedule, I would really have to disagree with you. But moving down, the Cleveland Guardians, I don't have their schedule to show you guys. You're just going to kind of take my word for it here. But the next 9, they're not bad. I mean, for at least the Guardians, you got to feel like you're pretty good heading into this next 9 games. Pittsburgh, you're going to have to play, and then you're going to have to play Kansas City again, like we already talked about. And then you play the Dodgers. So the Dodgers are a tough series there, but those first 6 games, those are games that you should go out and win. If the Guardians win all 6 of those games, they are going to look very, very good and have a very good cushion for the rest of September, I think. Just burying Kansas City, I think, a few games down is going to be a very big cushion for them going forward. But I think Kansas City is going to give them a run for their money in that series. So we'll just see what it looks like after that. They could just really get this lead back if they win those first 2 games and really not have to worry the rest of the way out. They could try some things. They could ease up on their starting pitchers maybe a little bit. But it's a toss-up for the Guardians even, who have been in control all year. After a very winnable stretch of 7 of those 7 games like we talked about, they've got 3 against Chicago and then 4 against Tampa Bay. So very winnable stretch of 7 games there. And then you're following that with a chance to possibly bury the Twins with a 4-game set there. And then you've got 3 versus St. Louis, 2 versus Cincinnati, and then 3 versus Houston. So 3 versus Houston to end it. That should program you pretty well for the postseason if that's where they're going to be at that point. But the final, 6 games out of the American League are against St. Louis and Cincinnati, which could very well be 6 wins right there. So the Guardians have a very fair, I wouldn't say very, but I would say a fairly favorable schedule for them going forward. I think that in terms of, the Guardians, Royals, and Twins, I think that Cleveland set themselves up best to succeed in September because of the cushion that they put kind of on them for the entire season. So while the Royals are starting to scare the Guardians for sure here, I'm sure that the Guardians at least are looking at their schedule and looking at the Royals' schedule and are like, well, we have a far more favorable one than you guys, so we should be in a lot better of a position a month from now. But next schedule I wanted to look at was one from the 3rd team in this division, who right now, they are still kind of in position. They're 3.5 games out of the division lead. The Minnesota Twins, they are, in a weird position here because I'm looking at their schedule now and I'm going to pull it up for you guys here. But it is a really, when you look at it, it could be tricky at times. For sure, it could be tricky. It's because you go back and forth from playing good teams to bad teams and good teams to bad teams. That's tough because if you play down to really bad teams, it's going to be hard the next series to go out and play up to that good competition. You start it with Toronto there. Obviously, I think that's a very favorable series as well as that Tampa Bay one, but we know that these are good AL East teams at least. They're going to put together something that are going to take some wins away from Minnesota in that regard. And then Kansas City, that's going to be absolute fireworks there in the early September, like I already talked about there. Then honestly, a very favorable games with 6 against the Angels and Reds combined. That should really help get some games back because I imagine by this point in mid-September, the Twins are probably still going to be 2 to 3 games back. And then you've got Cleveland, Boston, who is going to be a really tough 7-game stretch there. And then you've got Miami and Baltimore. So you've got 3 very attainable games in Miami. And then you got to turn around and play one of the best teams in the American League in the Baltimore Orioles. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough because you're going to have to pivot from playing really good competition, on a 6 to 7 game stretch to really bad comp on a 6-game stretch to 3 games against the Marlins, 3 against the Orioles. It's going to be a really fun month of September for this team that if they get hot could really take advantage and possibly get some ground covered in this division here. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. And there are going to be other teams fighting just outside of the AL Central as well. And one of those teams I want to talk about is kind of struggling to maintain their spot just in the wild card standings. They're not in it, but they're not out of it yet. And that's the Seattle Mariners out of the AL West, who really disappoint me because they really had every opportunity to just stay on the top of this division, and injuries and bad baseball have equated to their schedule looking like this for the rest of the year and having us not really know the state of what the Mariners are going to look like for the postseason bracket. But like I said, they're 4.5 games out of the wild card in the AL, and they are also 4 games back of the division lead. So they're bottling the division at this point. It's all on the Astros now. I'd be very surprised if the Astros actually sold this division, but I mean, this has been the weirdest baseball season in a long time, so I really would not be surprised. The Mariners, you see the schedule to the right of my camera here. Seven very favorable games, 10 favorable games, I would say, in a row here against the Angels, A's, and the Cardinals here. So this initial stretch of games from now to the kind of second week of September are going to be huge for this Mariners team. They get Julio back. They kind of get their roster back at full strength. They need to win these games. Like 8-2 minimum here. If they want a chance, like 8-2 minimum, then you got to go out. You have to take those 2 against the San Diego Padres. And then I think you have to take 3 or 4 against the Rangers here. The Yankees, I mean, we'll see at what point you'll be at in the standings by then, but this is an also must-win series for them. And the Yankees are going to be in a division race of their own, so I don't think they're going to really be able to take many wins out of them. And then you're going to have Texas again, Houston again, A's again. It's going to be really tough. But what I would say for the Mariners is that if they are able to, I guess, have a good stretch and win a lot of these games, which would really surprise me, but if they are able to, they certainly have the pitching to go out and do it. They will be in a really good spot in the wild card. But if they don't, they're going to probably miss it by a lot. So a lot of stuff here is up in the air. The Red Sox are also, I believe, 3 games back of the wild card, 3.5 games back. Looking at their schedule for the rest of the year. I mean, I just don't seriously think the Red Sox get in over the Mariners. But we'll see. They have a lot of remaining games against teams like the Yankees, Baltimore, and the Mets. So the Red Sox got a tough go at it. They're in a slightly better spot than the Seattle Mariners, but I think if I had to pick either of those teams to get in, I think right now it's the Seattle Mariners that would get in. They play worse comp, but it's division comp, so I wouldn't say it's, easier necessarily, but I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening. I think one of those 2 teams will collapse in September. It could very well be the Seattle Mariners, or it could be the Boston Red Sox, but it's going to be a fun watch for sure. So that's really all I got to say about the AL wildcard race. It's going to be fireworks, and when this NL wildcard heats up a little bit more, we'll talk about that on the show more. But as of right now, I mean, nothing's really changed out of the NL. The Arizona Diamondbacks are at the top of it right now, up 3 games, and then the Braves are right on the mark there, with the Padres hovering in between the Braves and the Diamondbacks 2 games ahead. And then the Mets are 3 games back, with the Cubs being 5 and the Cardinals and Giants being 6 and 6.5 games back. So not really anything too different with the wild card in terms of the teams that are trying to get in. The Braves, Padres, and Diamondbacks have kind of always been there, so not much needs to be said there. But again, very exciting race on both sides of the league. So I'm very, very excited for what we're going to see from all these wild card teams that are competing for a playoff spot. But since I did the AL wild card, I thought there's got to be something I could do content-wise to put a shine on the NL and to highlight some players out of the NL that are having a really good season. And I thought, since, a couple months from now, we'll know who the Rookie of the Years are and everything, the MVPs, the Cy Youngs, we'll get Silver Slugger and Gold Gloves. We'll have shows where, we talk about who should win those awards, who's going to win the award, and, who should take like a Gold Glove or something. That'll be like its own hour-long show or whatever. But I feel like with a month left of the season, I wanted to take some time to just reflect on some of these NL rookies who have just been amazing this season, because I feel like the AL rookies have been great, but the NL have really had some rookies that have impacted teams in a big way. And so I want to talk about some of those guys today, and guys that, like I said, are not named Paul Skenes. I just think I've talked about Skenes so many times on this show that, number one, it's not necessarily anything new. And number two, I want to just, highlight some players who honestly really deserve it, who just haven't gotten the most shine and highlight and praise throughout the entire season. A lot of these guys have gotten praise a lot this season, but I think some of these guys especially just deserve a bit more of it. So let's just start it out with one of my favorite guys in the entire league right now to just watch play. One of the flashiest players in the NL West. One of the coolest players, I think, just in all of baseball, has really given Paul Skenes a run for his money in terms of this NL Rookie of the Year here. And I think a lot of you could probably get behind what I'm about to say. It is Padres rookie Jackson Merrill. And I thought this would be good to pull up their just baseline stats for you guys and a bit of the background info on them. So shout out to Baseball Reference, of course, for all of this statistic and informational stuff that we're seeing in front of us here. But as you can see, the age 21-year-old, not much older than me, about just a month or 2 months and 1 day older than I am. So that's pretty crazy to think about, that this guy is honestly my age and hitting at a near 300 clip at the major league level. But his numbers have been absurd. As you can see there, a near 2020 season, he will almost certainly record one. 291 batting average, 324 on base percentage for a 494 slug and an 817 OPS. Well above average hitter with a 126 OPS plus. He has been absolutely amazing. There's absolutely nothing but good things I can say about Jackson Merrill. Making big plays in the field. The converted infielder to outfielder just looks so natural out there. It is a lot of fun to watch. He is now the NL Rookie of the Year favorite per Action Sports Network's consensus odds at minus 300. There's just nobody on the level of Jackson Merrill right now, and it is really, really fun to watch. He is in the 97th percentile in base running value and launch angle sweet spot percentage. So great hitting advanced metrics there. He's in the 93rd percentile with 7 outs above average. Sorry, I'm just not reading my notes right there. 91st percentile in arm strength, and then the 82nd for sprint speeds at 28.5 feet per second. So I showed you Pete Crow Armstrong's home-to-home time. Jackson Merrill's is not much slower, and he hits for substantially more power. He shows a lot of high upside on the exit velocity. He had a max EV of 111.6, and the contact just across the board is just not lopsided at all, which is awesome to see. He's more inclined to hit the ball up the middle, which I think is amazing, because now he could go oppo, he could pull the ball. He's very comfortable just taking that ball right up the middle, which I think is great. 33% pull to 26% opposite field contact rate as well, which, not too skewed there. And I think that's just amazing. He's really a guy who could hit the ball to all sides of the field and just is really just polished as a player. I mean, just really just so polished. He plays with just swag and just such confidence for somebody who's 21 years old. He's going to be a superstar if he's not already. If you haven't seen clips of this guy recently, the stuff that he's doing at the plate is absurd, and he's almost certainly going to be a perennial all-star in his career. And I cannot wait for what that career looks like, and to just year after year praise Jackson Merrill for what he's doing, because it is just so fun to watch. And he's been really one of the best just products from the Padres in so long that I love just talking about Jackson Merrill. But moving on to another Jackson, there's kind of this Jackson 3 that's been going on in the MLB this season, especially with the prospects. Obviously Jackson Merrill coming up, and then Jackson Holiday coming back to the majors and doing great things for the Orioles. But this guy's kind of slipped through the cracks, and it's Jackson Chourio of the Milwaukee Brewers. And he's kind of slipped through the cracks, like I said, but for no good reason. He started out kind of slow. He's 20 years old, so I would take the slow start and I would just kind of disregard that, because since then he has been incredible. For the last few months, he has really put it together. I mean, in April he hit 176, and then in May he hit 215. But then, like I said, the last few months, he's just been incredible. 315 average in June, a 317 average in July, and then a 303 so far. That's probably changed, obviously, since games are being played, but an over 300 batting average in August when I checked a couple days ago. So he has been just so good. And before yesterday's game, he had a post All-Star break slash line of 329, 365, 557 for a 922 OPS. 16 home runs, 19 stolen base for a 2020 possible rookie season, which would be incredible. Looking into more advanced numbers on Chourio's game, he has a 314 batting average on balls in play. Obviously, that's a high slug that he has as well. So if he's putting balls in play, racking up total bases. He's going to really see that batting average stay raised, and the batting average with balls in play, I think, only just shows that. 16.5% home run to fly ball ratio. The more Chourio puts this ball in the air, the better I think he's going to hit a lot more home runs. And he's got very similar exit velocity numbers to Jackson Merrill. If I'm not wrong, their maxed EV is the exact same at 111.6. And then the average exit velo number is a little small, or a little less than Jackson Merrill, but still solid exit velocity numbers. And like with Merrill, just great upside there as well. He shows great promise in the field and great play there already, with 5 outs above average. That ranks in the 88th percentile on Baseball Savant. Also in the 88th percentile for arm value, and then in the 98th percentile for sprint speed at 29.7 feet per second. So he is really just a rounded player like Jackson Merrill is. Just didn't have it right away, kind of like Merrill did, but nonetheless, just an amazing player in Jackson Merrill, or Jackson Chourio, another guy who should probably be an all-star for a lot of his career. And the Brewers really hit it out of the park, developing him. If you are a big Jackson Chourio fan, make sure you go tune into his brother in the minor league level with the Cleveland Guardians system, Yaisen Chourio. He had a really solid performance in the MLB Futures game this year. Just a quick shout out to Jason Chourio as we get into our next guy here, who is new franchise shortstop for the St. Louis Cardinals, Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn's just special. He's really something that I have enjoyed watching this season. I was a little hesitant to think about Mason Wynn as a rookie of the year type of player. But you could see the numbers. He's really put together such a solid season in 2024 with nearly 5 WAR in 477 at-bats, 137 hits for 12 home runs with a near 290 batting average. Scored 66 runs, 47 RBIs, 10 stolen bases. So not a 2020 season this year, but definitely has that potential in the future. A 335 on base, a 430 slug for a slightly less than 800 OPS and a well above average. Well, not well above average, but above average hit tool with a 112 OPS plus there. He's had a great year. There's no doubting that. I mean, his numbers are what they are, and he's just exceeded expectations, I feel like, for year one. 94th percentile in base running value, a solid whiff and K rate as well, 16.2% strikeout rate. He's got the phenomenal arm strength in the field with the great range like we talk about with 4 outs above average. 87th percentile for sprint speed, so he's a quick guy in his own right, and he's hitting for that slash line, 287, around 332 on base, 423 slug, and then a 111 WRC plus. 322 batting average on balls in play as well, so similar to Jackson Chourio. Guy just needs to put the ball in play, and good things will happen. He's got pretty even contact to all fields as well as, Jackson Merrill did. A lot of medium contact, though, so I'd just like to see Wynn hit the ball a little harder. But, that will almost certainly develop. This is a guy who, again, is only 22 years old. So I think he will really have just a solid career, and he's already starting to pan out. 40% ground ball rate as far as his contact goes. So I would like to see, obviously, more fly balls equal more home runs. So that's really the only critique on Mason Wynn that I have. Defensively at the plate, he's really been it all for the Cardinals this season, and he's been really, really huge, especially when they were like second in that division and maybe had thoughts that they could be in the postseason. He was obviously a big piece of that, and he will be a big piece for the remainder of, I'd say, like the next decade for the St. Louis Cardinals. So just another guy that I wanted to highlight there. Moving down, we have a pitcher who has been really solid this season, really took the league by storm kind of right away. And it was Japanese export, Shota Imanaga. Just has been so solid in his age 30 rookie season. He's just been consistent out of the rotation, really. 3.08 ERA in 24 games started and 140.1 innings pitched. Just a straight workhorse, 1.06 whip and a 10-3 record. So, this guy has been unreal through his first year. Some starts he has came back down to earth, but that literally happens to everybody, so I'm not going to critique that. He's been in the top percentiles in chase and walk rate, which has been really effective, obviously, for him from the left side, but will be effective for anybody. You want your lefties to get a lot of chase, especially if they don't have a lot of velocity in there. So that's great to see. As a 30-year-old rookie, you want your pitcher to be a little more polished, and I think that's what Imanaga is. He's just a solid left-hander. He'll throw everything at you. He's got a four-seamer, split-finger, sweeper, curve, change, and sinker. All but one of those pitches, however, is under league average for velocity. So that's where the chase and walk rate come in. You need those to be good for him to be a very effective pitcher, and that's exactly what he is. He's not a guy who has a lot of velo like I've talked about, but I want to see his ground ball rate improve a little bit. 35.2 is decent, but I would love to see that get into the 40s. I think that would make his starts a lot more effective. And most of the balls hit off of him are medium speed contact as well. So that's something that I think he should look to continue to do. Obviously limit that hard hit contact, and that for any pitcher is something that you need to do just to be effective. But I love what I saw out of Shota this year. There's another rookie on the Cubs that I think has really excelled this season as well, and that is first baseman Michael Busch. And this is the last rookie we'll talk about here before we take a quick break, but I think it's important to highlight Busch because this is a Cubs team that kind of took this season as a loss, and while they're not totally out of it, they're not going to make the playoffs, and Michael Busch should be a guy that looks to make an impact on this team for a while. They're going to be competitive in the future. They know that. They're playing for that. And this is a guy that I think is going to have a big impact. As you can see, 2.8 WAR this season, 104 hits, 251 average, 60 runs scored, 50 runs batted in, a couple stolen bases to his name as well, 337 on base, 435 slug, and a slightly under 800 OPS as well for a 115 OPS plus. He's been incredible for them. He was really solid in the beginning of the season when he kind of was taking that early Rookie of the Year award home for him in the first couple months of the season. But after Bellinger leaves, if Bellinger was ever getting first base reps, Busch has that spot locked down. Like I said, 251 batting average, the on base and the slug has been great as well. A 344 batting average on balls in play. Yeah, that's great as well. You want just all of these rookies that are so great at the plate right now. You just need them to put the ball in play. Essentially, that's just going to make them great. He walks a lot and he hits the sweet spot a lot as well. Barrels the ball up better than a lot of players do. And he's got solid range in the field as well with 3 outs above average. He's in the 83rd percentile for that. 16 home runs. I hope the power kind of just stays a little more consistent because for a lefty first baseman, I would like to see him hitting like 30 home runs a year. However, at just 26 years old, I obviously think that's going to come. He's a pull hitter, which, a lefty first baseman, obviously he's going to pull the ball 41% of the time. But he needs to kind of up the home run to fly ball ratio. Just put the ball in the air more. That's really bottom line with Michael Busch. That's how I think he becomes the most effective for the Cubs. But like I said, he should be one of the more exciting pieces on this roster for years to come. So just a little update there on some NL rookies and how good they have been this season. In my opinion, it's a lot of fun to talk about. When we come back from the break, we will talk about Dylan Cruz and his debut a little bit, as well as the rest of the 2023 first-round MLB Draft class. We'll see what those guys are up to now, how their development has been, and if any of those guys are in the majors. After that, if we've got time to follow that up, we will break down the bets for today. If we don't have much time, I'll just kind of give them to you and then put it out in a written piece after the show. But yeah, I think we'll cross that bridge when it comes. So I'm going to take a quick break here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network, just over halfway through the show. We'll get back in the second half with our first round update for the 2023 MLB Draft. But you're watching Back to the Dugout here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network, and we will be right back. All right, we are back for the second half of the show here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Welcome back, everybody, yet again to another episode of Back to the Dugout. I'm your host, Toby Schulman, here twice a week on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. And in the second half, like I said before we hit the break, I'm going to talk about the 2023 MLB Draft class, the first round, and we're going to see where those guys are at right now. But before I do that, Dylan Cruz debuted, so I'm just going to go over that right now. We're going to get into that, obviously, when we talk about the draft, but I feel like that's obviously the most pressing info. So let's just talk about what he's done with the Nationals in 3 games played, 12 plate appearances, 11 at-bats for 4 hits, 2 doubles, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, 1 stolen base, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, a 364 batting average, 417 on base, 818 slug, and a 1235 OPS for an unreal OPS plus of 242. Now, it's only been 2 games, but Cruz looks great. He looks like a polished hitter. He looks like much better of a player than when he was in the minor leagues. Cruz will be an elite center fielder for years to come. That's pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, I love the numbers that I'm seeing. I mean, multiple extra base hits in 3 games is crazy good. He's walking a little bit. He's stealing bases. He's racking in runs. So, I mean, this is a really good start for Dylan Cruz. I'm glad he hit the ground running. It was against my Yankees, but whatever. I mean, that's the price you pay for good baseball, I guess. Cruz just looks really, really solid. And I can't wait to see what he does in the month of September, because I think he's really going to put together a good stretch there. But let's take a look at the rest of this draft now, because I really want to see where all these guys are at. And I think it's really interesting to note, because a lot of these guys honestly rose pretty quickly, and some of them are doing really well in the minor leagues as well. But every player is in a different spot, which is what I think is very interesting about the way and the development of this draft class, is that there are some guys that are all-stars already, and there's some guys that haven't even made it out of their first level yet. So we're going to take a quick look here. I've got the draft tracker loaded up so you guys can see the top 10 here and follow along with me. But I didn't feel like pulling up 30 different prospect profiles and stats. Y'all have to forgive me about that. But first off, obviously, Paul Skenes. We have to talk about Paul Skenes. He is just seriously on a different planet. He is really just not on any type of planet that is Earth right now. He's been, just a lights out pitcher. It seems like every time he comes to the mound. 109 innings pitched in the MLB in his first season, 2.23 ERA, 18 games started, 11.2 Ks per 9. And he was a starter in the for the NL in the All-Star game. So you don't like Paul Skenes? That's tough, because he's not going anywhere. He will most likely be the highest paid pitcher in baseball when it comes down to it, and will be one of the best in the next couple of seasons if he's not that already. He came into the pros, and within his first month of being in the pros, was being called the best pitcher in baseball. That's not something that happens every single year. So really, just when Paul Skenes is on the mound, just recognize that you're soaking in something that is really rare, generational. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot in this draft, but just generational. That's what Paul Skenes is, and that's what he's shown to be this season. So moving on, we talked about Dylan Cruz at the second pick. Obviously, the Pirates could have gone Dylan Cruz, but with the rumors that he would be hard to sign and that he didn't want to play for Pittsburgh, the Nationals really got a bargain there, and probably the steal of the draft in Dylan Cruz, a player who rose to the majors in his first full season in the minors. What more can you want? He's a solid player, just an on-base machine, and I think he will be one of the best to ever put on a Nationals uniform when it's all said and done. But moving on to the third pick that rather surprised a lot of people in the 2023 draft, and it's Detroit's Max Clark. Max Clark still in High A West Michigan, where he has been really good, racking up a 289 average, 383 on base, and 481 slugging percentage for an 864 OPS. High A, it's a great place for you to develop. It's a great place for you to see really great young competition. So I'm really excited to see Max Clark doing so well at this level right here. That's really beneficial, I think, for the Tigers, who are in a bit of a worried state probably with the way that their current roster looks. But I think seeing guys like Max Clark perform as well as they're doing in the minor leagues really makes them put their minds at ease a little bit. I personally just love Clark's swing, the way that he plays just in every aspect of the game. I think he's going to be a superstar. Moving down to the fourth pick, who is another overall steal of the draft, I think, but just hasn't put together much of what I thought he was going to show. If you would have asked me, is Wyatt Langford going to be in the MLB by the 2024 season? I would have told you, of course. I would have said there was a chance he could have gotten up in 2023, and man, that would have been something. But unfortunately, for the World Series champion Texas Rangers, Langford didn't make it up in time. He made it to the opening day roster this season, where he put up slash line 245, 313, 372 for a weak OPS of under 700. So he's been mild this season and just hasn't shown power. But it'll come. I think this is a guy who will be a 30 home run a year type hitter. I think he just has really gotten thrown into the ringer this year. And there was no, all right, you're developing in the minor leagues. It was, you're going to find your game in the majors. You're taking the Angels player route now, whether you like it or not. Tough, because you're going to be there. So Langford's shown at times he could be really, really good. Obviously, he had that cycle, but there is obviously that other side where it's like he rose up so quickly. Was he really ready for it? I think he was. I think everybody during spring training knew he was. And he was a borderline top 3 first overall pick in the past year's draft. So I really like what I'm seeing out of Wyatt Langford, despite it not being much power. I think the hit tool is still really there, and I think the versatility is shown a little bit more than we thought as well. So I love Wyatt Langford for the Rangers. I think he'll be one of their better players soon. But now we got to talk about the guy who will most likely take over the title of baseball's next top prospect. Not the flashiest name by any margins, but Walker Jenkins is really legit. Minnesota Twins top prospect is hitting 289, 352, and 485 right now for an 836 OPS in high A Cedar Rapids. So he was doing really well in Fort Myers down in low A, which I kind of hoped he'd stay down there a little bit more in case I ever went out west to West Florida to go see him play there, in case, maybe I wanted to get some prospect content out of him. But he's played really, really well right now in high A Cedar Rapids, and I don't expect that production to really slow down. He's just such a physically gifted player that I would feel really uncomfortable not putting this guy as the best prospect in baseball when that list eventually updates. A little spoiler for when we get down to my top 100 prospect list, he will most likely be that top name. But I just love what I'm seeing out of Jenkins right now. Those numbers are great. The frame and the physicality is built for the major leagues, and it is just a matter of time before he gets there. But a player who I was surprised to see rise up this quickly was Jacob Wilson at the 6th overall pick for the Oakland A's. At a Grand Canyon, Jacob Wilson saw a lot of potential to be a great contact hitter, and that's exactly what he was. He hit like over 400 through the minor leagues and recorded a couple hits at the major league level, but he has a hamstring injury that he's battled out of his debut, which was really terrible to see. I mean, he got a hit, he made some great plays in the field, and then he got hurt in his debut. So I'm going to see if he's played since then. I've been trying to keep my tabs on Jacob Wilson, but obviously, stuff comes up and you're not always able to keep track of these guys. But he's played 3 games, so it looks like he's back, which is great. I think this is a really amazing prospect that has just blossomed into something that the A's couldn't even have imagined that quick. So I love what I'm seeing out of Jacob Wilson. And now we got to talk about the 7th overall pick, Rhett Lauder to the Cincinnati Reds in 2023 that is making his debut today. I think Rhett Lauder is incredible. I think he has great stuff. He's just kind of not really put it together stat-wise in the minors, which is whatever. You more want to see the intangibles work. But 4.31 ERA in 16 games started across Double A Chattanooga, 9.0 Ks per 9. I guess they saw everything they needed to out of him. Again, I don't really look at ERA as a telltale stat to keep a player down, but just wasn't jaw-dropping to me to really call him up, but who cares? It's September almost. Let's get Lauder up there and cooking because he'll probably be in the rotation next year. A guy who won't be up next year, but will most likely be the replacement for Salvador Perez, is Kansas City's Blake Mitchell, who's hit 243 this season with an 833 OPS and nearly 20 home runs with 25 stolen bases. 382 on base percentage. Some of the stats are really good on Blake Mitchell. He 25 stolen bases for a catcher is really good, so I really like that. That's not what they're used to with Salvi. What I just will say before we move on to Chase Dollander is that Mitchell's really just has a lot of time to develop. I think he's going to be a very well-polished prospect when he's ready to come up, and I think that is the exact replacement that they need for Salvi Perez. So Chase Dollander for the Rockies got the Double-A call-up to Hartford after a great stretch in High A and a really good start in the Futures game. 1.69 ERA in 6 games started in Double-A, and 32 innings pitched, 10.7 Ks per 9. He looks really good. He'll probably be up next year if I do imagine. Moving down to Noble Meyer here at the 10th overall pick. Shout out Noble Meyer, man. Miami Marlins prospect. Was playing a lot in Jupiter up in this area. He struggled in High A after just looking great in Low A Jupiter. Like I already said, 5.55 ERA now in High A. So he's young. I don't think he's even 20 years old yet, or he might not even be 19. But Noble Meyer still has a lot of time to develop, and obviously that velocity is something that is extremely rare at his age. So I'm excited to see what he does for the Miami organization next season. If you want a little bit more information on Noble Meyer, I did a Edward Cabrera deep dive on why I think he should be moved to the bullpen on the Marlins roster, and I mentioned Noble Meyer and a couple other prospect names in there if you want to take a look at that on BleacherBrothers.com. But Meyer's struggling a little bit, and I'm sure he'll get it together. Obviously, high school arm, he's going to not have the most linear pathway to the majors, I am imagining. But now we move on to the 11th overall pick in Nolan Schanuel, who is a pretty everyday player on the LA Angels. He was the first in the draft class to rise to the majors, which is something that I absolutely love seeing. As an FAU student, FAU alum Nolan Schanuel rising to the majors to hit for a 251 batting average and a 347 on base with a 371 slug. Obviously, it's not the best numbers, but he does have a slightly above average OPS plus with 101, and he does have 12 home runs. So Schanuel is the type of player where the more he plays at a certain level, the stats elevate every year. The more he gets accustomed to the level that he's at. So I would just not overreact to any of the weaker numbers. I don't think he's having a bad year at all. If I was talking to an Angels fan here, if there are any Angels fans watching, I would say expect all of those numbers to improve over the next few seasons. And then by the time he's, I don't even know how old he was when he got drafted. He's like 22 right now. So, when he's 27, he should be an absolutely incredible first baseman. I'm just really excited to see that. Tommy Troy of the D-backs org has struggled a bit in High A ball with a 227 batting average, but he saw great success in rookie ball, so I think it's more or less just give him more time at the level, and he'll probably elevate his stats a little bit more. One of the D-backs' top prospects. Personally, not one that I'm following too heavily right now, just because, like I said, he's struggling a bit. But if you are someone who likes to buy low and sell high, this is a guy that I would do that for. He should be a solid player. Kyle Teal is the next one up. Matt Shaw sorry. He's done all right in Double A and Triple A this season with the Cubs org with a 275 batting average, 376 on base, 464 slug, 17 home runs and 28 stolen bases. So good numbers there. He's solid. This is a really, really good player. This is an everyday infielder. I think Shaw will be very, very good for this team. Kyle Teal, he's made the rise with the Boston Big Three and Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony, and him. He struggled in AAA, batting 130 with a 379 OPS in 12 games. That's just brutal. But he was phenomenal in AA. He hit nearly 300 at a 299 clip with a 390 on base, 462 slug, and then an 852 OPS. So he has been really good in the minors so far, just kind of found his first slump here. He'll pick it up, I'm sure, though. At the 15th pick, Jacob Gonzalez for the Chicago White Sox. I often forget about this pick, but he's been a solid hitter this year. Near 250 clip as a 22-year-old bouncing around Double A and High A. He's just the White Sox 12th best prospect, so he's an afterthought, really. But keep an eye on him because he's honestly a decent hitter. I'm really excited to see the stuff that he does. But moving on, we've got Bryce Eldridge with the San Francisco Giants, another really good middle of the first round pick. He's been on fire this season for San Francisco. 329 average and 437 on base, 605 slug, and a 1.042 OPS in high A Eugene in 46 games played. Over the last 30 games, he's hitting over 300 with a 620 slug as well and a near 400 on base percentage. This is generational power from McCovey Cove. A lot of these organizational games do happen in areas that are very highly elevated. So you get to see Eldridge hit tanks like 430, 40 feet tanks pretty consistently. So I've uploaded some of those clips to my Twitter and have reposted clips that fly around because it's a lot of fun to watch Eldridge hit. He's got a great swing. Another guy who's just fun to watch, Enrique Bradfield of the Orioles org. Solid in over 80 games at high A, earning the double-A call-up. Has hit 291, 400 on base, 400 slug in double-A in just under 20 games there, and almost 60 stolen bases this season pretty much. So he's an elite runner. And then Brock Wilken on the Brewers side struggled slightly after playing really well in rookie ball, went straight to double-A and just hit over 200 slightly with an OPS below 700. The former Demon Deacon, he's just being told essentially to adjust it at the double-A level. Braden Taylor of the Tampa Bay system coming in there at that 19th overall pick, received the double-A call-up and has hit 256 across his first pro season, so just a mid-year out of him, I'd say. 14 home runs, 26 stolen bases, so solid numbers, honestly, but not one of the serious risers, I think, from this class. Another player who's kind of just been fairly average is that 20th overall pick there, Arjun Nimala. He entered low A after a solid look in rookie ball. And it just looks like it's going to be a slow climb for Nimala to the bigs, which obviously he's a high school bat, but it seems like he has to adjust more to the low A ball and high A for sure once he gets up there. But hitting below 240 and OPS below 800, there have been some errors as well at shortstop. So he's got to develop a little more, but he's young, so it'll take some time, I bet. Chase Davis out of the Cardinals org has been great since getting the call up to high A about 24 games ago. 308 average, 382 on base, and 429 slug. He's just an extremely versatile outfielder. I think this was a great pick for them. Colt Emerson of the Seattle Mariners organization. He saw his best numbers in low A Modesto this season and struggled a bit in high A since entering about 21 games ago. He hit nearly 300 in Modesto, though, with an 867 OPS. So he really looks good and is obviously a future cornerstone of this middle infield for the Mariners. Moving down to the Cleveland Guardians, who had the first overall pick this year. They got a stud in their 23 overall pick last year, and they just called him up to high A. Ralphie Velasquez, his average has been kind of low, but the calling card for him is really the power. 11 home runs in the minor league so far. He just has such a smooth swing from that left side that I love watching it, and I think everybody should tune into. He's going to keep it improving, I'm sure, as the years go on here. Hurston Waldrop, as you can see, the 24th overall pick for the Atlanta Braves, rose through the system quickly, and he actually made his MLB debut this year. In 2 games started, has a 16.71 ERA, so he obviously wasn't ready for the big league stage, but should almost certainly be a part of the rotation in 2025. 2024, he has a 3.87 ERA, and opponents have a 2.68 average against him. There's just been points with the Gwinnett Stripers where I feel like he hasn't been at his best, but he's getting better, and he's already made his big league debut, so that Band-Aid's kind of pulled off, and he now has something to improve upon. Dylan Head from the San Diego organization was actually traded to the Miami organization, if you remember, in that Luis Arraez trade, and he looked actually like he was adjusting really well to the Miami org, hitting over 300 in a handful of games with them, and he had a season-ending injury. So that sucks, but again, young player in Dylan Head, I think he will be solid. And I think the Marlins really think big of him, and I think they're going to really do all they can to make sure that he comes up and out of that system really well. Moving down to the Yankees pick, George Lombard Jr. He was another one of those Vandy boy commits who was with like Max Clark and guys who were expected to get drafted. We just didn't know if he would sign. Luckily, the Yankees got him to sign, and he's now their third-ranked prospect and has been not really putting it together in his first pro season, but at just 19 years old, I'm not worried about it. I'm sure that will improve and he's got all the time in the world to do it. Obviously, with Anthony Volpe there at shortstop, he's not exactly starting over him anytime soon. Aiden Miller of the Philadelphia Phillies, he just looks like a steal at 27 for them. The kid's pop's legit. It's really good, and his hit tool as a whole is just so fun to watch. He's currently hitting nearly 260 this season with an OPS of 823 and 10 home runs. Currently tearing up Jersey Shore High A, and he's just having a lot of fun doing it. Hitting 285 across all levels. That's moving down. I'm looking ahead of myself now. But like I said, Miller's power is obviously undeniable. I think he's incredibly solid, and I love what he's done with the Jersey Shore High A affiliate and the Phillies org. But Bryce Matthews for the Houston Astros, the Nebraska Cornhusker alum, he's looked amazing at every level he's been at. He hit 400 plus at rookie ball, and now he's hitting 320 at High A, and he's just adjusting to Double A now. 285 average across all levels. Looks to be incredibly versatile infielder and is developing very nicely, which I think is a huge bonus for the Astros because their farm system is not too flashy. I'd love for this guy to come up and help Alex Bregman, help Jeremy Pena a little bit. If they could play this guy at second base, that'd be awesome. But looking at the last two picks that ended up going to Seattle, Johnny Farmelo, solid season at Low A Modesto, but again, that's kind of just the only thing I could say about that pick there. And then Ty Pete, who thought by many to be a really solid pick there at that last spot in the first round. He started out really well in rookie ball. Since he's just now adjusting to Low A Modesto, and he's been pretty solid there, but nothing really else to report. So we got 3 minutes left on the show. That was the update on the 2023 first round draft class. You could see a lot of them are making impacts at big league levels or are about to. They've either been given their chance to debut and are now kind of reassessed, or you can kind of just see what tools are starting to develop really nicely. And all of these guys are different. I mean, all these guys are extremely different. Going to have more of a more deeper, deeper dive into this class, where I really dig into what they're going to be good at the major league level, how they can impact their organizations, and what I really enjoy seeing out of them so far in their short careers. But it's been a lot of fun. These guys are going to be names that I'm sure a lot of us remember. I think a lot of these guys are going to come up and be everyday big leaguers. So a lot of stuff to like from them. 2 minutes left. I want to give just my, 6 picks, and I'll have it more in written content. Obviously, the 2 college football picks I'm not going to be getting into on written content, but I'll just get into them right now. FAU plus 13.5. I think this is a no-brainer. Little biased. We are FAU students here, and we are FAU reporters on Bleacher Brothers, but I think that gives us more of a say as to whether or not, you want to tail this 13.5 or not. We know this team is pretty damn good. This football team is a lot better this season than it ever has been. I just think the plus 13.5 is a big play there. Michigan State's not the best, so we'll see what they do there. Florida versus Miami. Take the Florida money line. It's the Swamp. I don't care how good Miami is. I watched that Florida-Utah game in person at the Swamp. Never felt like Utah was in it. So just going into the 4 baseball picks now to round out the show. We've got Nick Castellanos of the Phillies. His stuff against Reynaldo Lopez has been great, so I like him to get 2 total bases today. Rhett Lauder debut. Give me Rhett Lauder. Let's tail Rhett Lauder today. Cincinnati first 5. Can't throw props on that second doubleheader game, but we can ride Rhett Lauder's debut and take the first 5 innings there on the money line for Cincinnati. Jazz Chisholm over 1 home run. He's not hitting more than 5 home runs. Over half a home run. That's plus 550. That's where I was getting that 5 from. But there's great value in that prop nonetheless. And in 12 at-bats against Eric Fetty, Jazz has 2 home runs with a 333 batting average. So I like that play there. A lot of value there. And then Blake Snell against the Marlins. If he doesn't go at least 6 innings, I'll be really, really surprised. So give me the over 17.5 outs there. But that's about all I got today on the show. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties that we had yesterday, resulting in no show yesterday afternoon. But at least we got to do it this afternoon. That's the way I see it. We'll be back next week, Monday and Thursday, normal schedule. And hopefully no issues there. But that's all I got for you guys today again. A lot of stuff that we covered today, but I'll have a lot of written content coming out in the near future about this stuff. Stay tuned for these picks and all of the kind of reasoning towards these picks being put out on bleacherbrothers.com within the next hour. And I'll see you guys on Monday to talk about this weekend. I didn't do a series of the weekend, actually. I'm going to do that real quick because I want to leave you guys with something to watch this weekend, something fun to watch. You know what? We're going to go back to the Royals. Royals at the Houston Astros is your series to watch this weekend. Big implications coming out of the NL Central for that. But that's all I got for you guys today. Again, a lot of stuff that we went into today, but I'm glad that we got to do it. Stay tuned for these picks coming out. Tune into the Royals and Astros series. Tune into the FAU Michigan State game tonight. Tune into all of our programming here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. And for Back to the Dugout and the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network, I'm Toby Schulman, and I will see you guys on Monday.